Thank you, Echo, for leading us in the chant, and thank you, Jise, for hosting all of us here tonight. The Dharma incomparably profound. It sounds like that may be something sort of out there, really big, really, I don't know, extraordinary, really special in some way. And yet, right now, right here, we see it. You know, in our ordinary lives, in our homes, in our temples, with our family. Right here. Very ordinary. And my name is Kenko, and I'm a senior student at the Village Zendo. I guess, and also wherever there is a branch of the Village Zendo all across the world and all across the nation and all across New York and all across Massachusetts and all across wherever we all are, right? It's all one big network. I live in Northampton, Massachusetts, where I practice with a small group called the Soto Zen Sangha. In my job, I teach mathematics and mathematics education here at Westfield State University. But right now, over the summer, I'm, I guess, officially without contract as usual in the summer, which means that there is space, which is wonderful. So welcome all to July. Here we are. And in the last days, it's really felt like summer, at least up here. Very warm, very humid. And you sort of come outside and you feel like you're sort of walking through water. And you can almost feel the wave across your bow as you're walking. And then last night, yesterday, the clouds came through and the rain came through and the thunderstorms and the lightning and the big drops of rain just sort of splattering down. And today it's cooler, cloudy, and a little wet. I took a walk this morning. There was just, you know, a hint of rain. Enough that I thought, I should have taken an umbrella. But it was just a little reminder, just a few drops here and there. So I wonder what the sit was like for you that we just had. You know, being with your body, being in your body, being still, being with your mind, being with your heart, being with your feelings, being with your stories, and also being with moments when it's like you're coming back. It's like there's a fresh start, there's just this breath, just this sensation of the belly moving out, the belly moving back, coming back. So yesterday, as I usually do, I called my mom during the middle of the day, and instead of actually connecting, there was sort of a message in German that said that the person is not available right now. So I thought, okay. And I first had to look up. I guess I haven't been in German telephone land for a while to sort of look up what precisely that means. And it just meant that, you know, maybe she's on the phone with someone else, or maybe the phone is not really completely on the handle. So this is the old style phone. Or, you know, maybe something else is going on with the network. So it was a little surprising, given that I sort of call her fairly regularly. So in a way, it's sort of predictable. And so I didn't think that she would be out with a dog, because she usually does that at some other time. But, I thought maybe she's on the phone with somebody else, and I'll try again in a little while. And same result, voice saying that your party is not available right now. So, later the day, I texted my brother and sort of, described what I had noticed. I wasn't really, I don't know, concerned or anything. It was because it had happened before that the phone hadn't been completely hung up. So it's like, oh, I just noticed that. Is that also something that you noticed? Does that have something to do with me calling from the US, or what is going on? And then later in the day, he replied that my mom had called him from a friend's house and said that there had been a lightning strike in the street. And that apparently all kinds of things were, I don't know, had gotten a little out of whack. And apparently also her phone. But he also said, she's learning how to use her cell phone. She has found the need, and she's willing to give it a try. And, what I also found wonderful is, there's a whole neighborhood. There are friends down the street. And so, she went to talk to them and said, can you help me figure out this phone thing? I have one of these, but I haven't used it before. So today I called her cell phone number, and it rings and it rings and it rings. So I think, oh, maybe she's out with a dog. She wasn't expecting my call on that particular day. So I hang up, and then, just a few seconds later, the phone rings, and it's my mom calling from her cell phone. It's like, yay, yay, you can figure this out. This is wonderful. We are connected in both ways. And she felt very excited that somehow she had managed, and she was to call, and she was talking to me in the US, which, a long time ago was like, you'd call maybe once a month, and it was sort of the most special thing ever. So what I was reminded of that, when the need arises, the response is right there. Yeah. It's like, oh, I want to call him. This phone doesn't work. Let me try to figure out how this other one works. Late last night, I got an email from the National Science Foundation, from the program officer, who told me that we hadn't gotten a grant that we had applied for, and that's joint work with some colleagues in Omaha, Nebraska. And then I noticed, maybe because it was sort of quiet in the evening, I sort of had the space to see it, and I thought, oh no. Whether I did something wrong, maybe in uploading it, or maybe in putting the materials together. So immediately there was sort of this, oh, I did something wrong. And then sort of a feeling of, I don't know, anxiety, or maybe even shame if I somehow did something wrong and sort of left my colleagues down. But somehow there was the space to sort of see that I was getting myself on that familiar roller coaster. And just seeing that meant that, oh, okay, this is what is coming up. Huh. Interesting. To see what can hijack our functioning. Old stories and deep ruts in the mind. At least that's what it can be like for me. And on Wednesdays around lunchtime, I meet with a few colleagues from work for a 25-minute meditation sit. We used to do that in person. There's a small chapel on the campus, and some other faculty and some staff come together to just sort of sit, and we're in the basement, and people sort of close the blinds, so it's very dark, and some people fall asleep and some people sit, and it's just a beautiful way of being together right in the middle of the day. And often in the beginning of that, there is sort of a space to just check in for anybody who wants to share. And on Wednesday, I shared that to my surprise, I had felt that I'm usually more anxious before COVID. So usually when I drive to school in the morning, there is sort of a grumbly kind of energy in my belly. And I think some of it, at least sort of the story that my mind comes up around that is sort of, oh, am I really prepared for my classes? And sort of it's anxious that, have I really thought of everything and what's going to happen, and sort of planning the class. But at the same time, I'm driving my car. So it's not like I can say, oh, let me just take some notes on the things that I definitely want to mention. So it's like a spinning wheel kind of anxiety. And it was interesting that during COVID, not having the commute, somehow something was different about that, right? I mean, it wasn't that there was less work. There was actually more work, and there was more preparation, and there was more thinking that needed to go into everything, because I needed more of a structure so that the structure would hold all of us. In a classroom, I felt that I can be a lot more flexible and sort of decide where to go. And maybe I change my mind halfway through. And I can just have a conversation with people, and I can just go over to somebody's table to look at what it is that they're doing. But to orchestrate that online means that a lot of those structures have to be planned and put in place. And yet so it was a very busy time, but maybe I noticed one aspect of difference was that when I noticed that there was something more to do, I could just sit down and do it, right? Oh, I notice I need to set up this shared lesson plan. Oh, I can do that after dinner, and then I just did it. So it's interesting how something like a pandemic can make us realize that in the middle of the pandemic, there might even be less anxiety around that, around some pieces that I've lived with for many, many years of teaching. And I just sort of think that that's just the way it is, but maybe it doesn't have to be that way. Which doesn't mean that, there may be other reasons for anxiety that during the pandemic that got really, tuned up. But for me, in part because my partner is retired, and he was willing to take care of a lot of the going to shopping, preparing dinner. So I felt very, very held and very supported in that. And that also meant that I was also protected from some of the anxiety, for instance, around, oh, if I go to the grocery store, how exactly do I do that? When do I do that? When is the best time for me to go? Am I really protected? Is this person coming too close to me? But in my case, there was sort of an area of anxiety that shifted and changed. So I thought I'd share these 3 little anecdotes with you, because I think there is sort of a curious common theme among them. And there's a koan that maybe can help us point a little bit to what I think is interesting and common among them. So this is case 7 from the Mumon Kan, and it's a well-known koan. I think most of you will know it. Joshu says, "Wash your bowls." So once a student made a request of Joshu, "I have just entered the monastery. Please, master, give me instructions." Joshu said, Have you had your breakfast? Yes, I have, the student replied. Then, said Joshu, go wash your bowls. And the student, as it so often says in a koan, the student had an insight. So what resonates in this koan about the little anecdotes that I shared is, I think he really points to just this moment. In its ordinariness, in the concrete and specific circumstances that I'm in right now, also in its simplicity. It's not that there's this whole complicated thing that I have to first figure out. It's here. And maybe it's simple. Not easy, but maybe simple. And I think what the koan is also pointing to is really bringing our attention fully to what's at hand right now. Ready to engage fully with both hands, as is often in the Japanese tradition. It's like you do things with both hands. And for me, that means that my attention is where my hands are. And if one hand is here and one hand is there, it's like my mind is somewhere in between, or maybe even somewhere else. So ready to engage fully with both hands. And with all the tools at our disposal, right? Here, the breakfast, the bowl, the washing the bowl, all the tool, whatever is needed is available. And that has been hard for me to see for the longest time, that there's also a grandmotherly kindness in it, in the question, in the interaction, both to ourselves and to everybody around us. And with an awareness what's around us can actually hold us and support us. So in a way, that's what I saw with my mom when the lightning broke the phone line. She reached out to friends, she reached out to neighbors. One of them came to make sure that the heating is still running, because it's not quite as warm in Germany as it has been here. And yes, still running. And the lights are still on. And the TV still works. Another helped her figure out the cell phone so that she could call an electrician, because there were 2 lights in the basement that were out, even though the bulbs were actually looked like they were good bulbs. So she found her way through the situation with the help and the support of what was at hand. And she found her way through working with a cell phone, which is something that for the longest time has been a big source of hesitation for her. And similar in the koan, what also resonated for me when I got the disappointing news about the grand was the chance to see and feel the anxiety that was coming up in that particular moment. The story ready to spin off. And also, and it's not quite clear where it comes from, that grandmotherly moment of space or grace that allowed me to see that the spinning was getting underway. Similarly with my commuting, with the butterflies in the belly. Noticing how the body and the mind looping in their own story. And does that really serve? Are there other ways to trust that I'm prepared to meet the moment and that I'm ready for the unknown, whatever may come? What could help us develop or connect with such a deep level of trust that allows us to meet just this moment. Not the next one, just this one. This one is the only one that we really have to take care of. And that actually feels like a big relief. You know? It's like so much of my thinking is about, oh, what might happen down the road and how can I be prepared and how can I prevent that from happening and how can I work around that? And to realize, well, for now, for the moment, let me just take care of this moment. And in that process, also realize that in that sense of care for ourselves, there is also a connection with what's around us. You know, and to see the things that can hold us in that moment as we take care of it. So I wonder about your life. What is it in your life that maybe sometimes asks you, have you had your breakfast? That asks you, that brings you back to the moment and says, what's going on with you right now? What are you feeling? How are you? And then maybe if one of those situations comes to mind for you, what does it mean for you to respond in that case to go and wash your bowls? What is it that needs taking care of? What we can serve, support, and meet. Let me close with Mumon's poem on the case. He says, because it is so very clear, it takes longer to come to the realization. If you know at once that candlelight is fire, ouch, the meal has long been cooked. Thank you, everybody. It's wonderful to be with you.